December 24th, 1999, Christmas Eve night. Cold rain streaked across the windows of St. Mary's Hospital. Nicole, 21 years old, sat beside the hospital bed of her husband, Raphael, cradling their newborn daughter, Meryl, in her arms. The white hospital walls were adorned with Christmas decorations crafted by the nurses. There was no joy of Christmas. Instead, a heavy atmosphere enveloped the room. Memories of meeting Raphael resurfaced in Nicole's mind as if it were just yesterday. 2 years ago, Raphael was a regular at the cafe where Nicole worked part-time. A literature student, he always carried thick books in his hands. Over time, through brief conversations, Nicole found herself drawn to his inner self. Falling in love with him was like a refreshing breeze of youth, filled with joy. Campus dates, picnics in the park, movie nights at the theater. With the recklessness of youth, they decided to get married after 6 months. However, their determination was unwavering. The wedding was small but heartfelt. Nicole's salary was modest, and Raphael was still a student, so they had no luxuries. But for them, it was enough. They believed that as long as they had love, nothing else mattered. When they found out Nicole was pregnant, they felt unparalleled happiness. Nicole attended university during the day and worked multiple part-time jobs at night. Raphael, too, continued his studies as long as his health allowed. Their future seemed bright and full of hope. "She looks like you," Raphael said weakly. His body grew weaker with each passing moment due to his illness. "No, she looks like you," Nicole replied with a smile. Baby Meryl, oblivious to her parents' conversation, slept peacefully, her gentle breaths filling the room. The weight of her tiny life pressed tenderly into Nicole's arms. Raphael smiled faintly. Despite his condition, that smile seemed to light up the entire room. "Make Meryl happy." His voice faltered. "Of course. But you too. You'll get better soon. The 3 of us as a family." She couldn't finish her sentence. The doctor's expressions had already said it all. Raphael's condition was far more severe than expected, and the treatments had little effect. Raphael shook his head slowly. Perhaps he instinctively knew his time was short. His eyes didn't reflect resignation, but rather a deep love. "Please, Nicole, promise me." "I promise," Nicole said, gripping Raphael's hand tightly. She had never felt his hand so cold. That smile became Raphael's final gift. As night fell, his breathing grew weaker. Nicole clung desperately to his hand, but fate had decided to tear apart their young love. A little past midnight, Raphael quietly took his last breath. At that moment, the hospital clock struck midnight, and Christmas bells rang faintly in the distance. Holding her baby, Nicole wept in the hospital corridor. Outside, the rain poured harder. The Christmas tree's lights cast flickering reflections along the hallway. In that light, Nicole made a vow. No matter what, she would protect Meryl. She would love her and ensure her happiness. From that night on, Nicole's life changed drastically. She dropped out of university and searched for full-time work. During the day, she worked in sales, and at night, she taught herself programming. Her sister Lizzie, who lived nearby, helped care for Meryl. Through relentless effort, Nicole ensured Meryl could live a life of comfort. She gave her daughter countless toys and trips abroad. Whatever her daughter wished for, she provided. She believed that was how love should be expressed, and she thought it was the way to fulfill her promise to Raphael. Her mission was to never let her daughter feel lonely. But now, that conviction was beginning to waver. The promise she had kept for 23 years was questioning her in an unexpected way. What is true love? What is true happiness? Nicole realized she needed to find the answers from now on. In the spring of 2024, the aroma of coffee filled the living room of Nicole's home. This house, located in an upscale neighborhood in the suburbs of New York, symbolized her success. However, that morning, the atmosphere was unusually tense. "Mom, I need to talk to you about the wedding," Meryl said from across the table. Her voice carried the familiar tone of a daughter still accustomed to leaning on her mother. At 23 years old, Meryl had lived a life of luxury and comfort. She was the epitome of a young person accustomed to having the latest gadgets and indulging in an extravagant lifestyle. As Nicole looked at her daughter, a thought crossed her mind. Did Meryl truly resemble Raphael? Certainly, her outward appearance had Raphael's refined features. But Nicole didn't sense much of Raphael's kindness, empathy for others, or, above all, his strong will. "Marty and I booked the Grand Plaza Hotel," Meryl said, her voice brimming with excitement. "Usually there's a 2-year wait, but thanks to Marty's connections, we got a cancellation slot for next month." Nicole picked up her coffee cup, listening intently to her daughter's words. Marty, whom Meryl had met a year ago, was a rising star in the investment analysis world. Nicole's instincts as a businesswoman, however, sensed something off about him. How much are you planning to spend?" "Well," Meryl replied, scrolling through her smartphone, "the venue costs $50,000. Then the dress is $30,000. Flowers are $20,000. Catering is another $30,000. Music and photography come to $20,000. She listed the amounts, ticking them off on her fingers as though reciting a grocery list. "That's about $150,000 altogether. But that's normal, right? I heard Lucy's wedding cost $200,000. Nicole's expression froze. Even though her business was doing well, $150,000 was a significant amount that could affect her working capital. It coincided with the launch of a new project, and such an expense could put pressure on the company's finances. "Meryl, that amount is..." "Mom, it's my wedding," Meryl interrupted, staring intently at her mother. Nicole felt a pang in her chest. She had indeed saved $75,000 specifically for her daughter's wedding. $75,000 is doable, but... "Mom, weren't you saving for me?" Other moms prepare for their daughters' weddings years in advance. At that moment, anger bubbled up inside Nicole. But she suppressed it and responded calmly. "Meryl, I think you understand, but $150,000 is an amount that could impact the company's operations. Are you saying the company is more important than me?" Tears welled up in Meryl's eyes, but they seemed less like tears of true sadness and more like the frustration of a child who didn't get what she wanted. "It's not that. It's just..." "Never mind," Meryl muttered, sulking. "If you truly cared about me, Mom, you wouldn't react like this. Marty's parents said they'd be willing to cover the expenses for him." Watching her daughter grab her bag and storm out, Nicole asked herself, was this really the right decision? That night, Nicole received a call from her sister, Lizzie. "Nicole, Meryl called me, crying." "I see," Nicole replied in a tired voice. "But I think you made the right choice. She's been too spoiled," Lizzie said firmly. "Lizzie." "Nicole, I've been meaning to tell you this." Lizzie's voice was filled with seriousness. Raphael would never have wanted things like this. Lizzie's words stung. But within that pain, Nicole felt the truth. "Have I been wrong?" she murmured. "It's not that you were wrong. It's the way you've been showing your love," Lizzie said gently. Those words gave Nicole a sliver of hope, but that hope would soon crumble with what happened the next day. The following morning, Nicole's phone rang. The call was from her client and friend, Max. The clock hadn't even struck 7. "Nicole, have you seen Facebook? You need to check it right away," Max said, his usually cheerful tone absent. Hearing the unease in her friend's voice, Nicole felt a sense of dread. She opened her laptop and logged into Facebook. Meryl's post appeared on the screen. "My penny-pinching loser of a mother cares more about money than her own daughter's happiness. She was always too busy with work when I was a kid, and now she's crushing my dreams. Dad's death? I bet that's her fault too, because of her selfishness. Does she even know what real love is? Nicole's heart broke as she read the words. It was devastating to be spoken about like this by the daughter she had raised with such effort. She had tried her best to ensure Meryl didn't feel lonely growing up with a single parent. But she never imagined it would be repaid this way. The post already had hundreds of likes and the comments were filled with sympathetic responses. So sad. A parent should prioritize their child's happiness. Some things are more important than money. If my mom were like that, I'd keep my distance too. Each comment pierced Nicole deeply. Especially the mention of Raphael's death. It unearthed the pain she had desperately buried for 23 years. Nicole closed Facebook. For a while, she simply sat in her chair, staring into the void. Her mind swirled with memories. The night Raphael passed away, the years of working tirelessly to raise Meryl, all the ways she had tried her best for her daughter. Her phone rang again. This time, it was a call from her office. About the morning meeting. Cancel it, Nicole said in a weary voice. I'm not feeling well today. Understood, but... The hesitation in the voice on the other end was evident. There have been some inquiries from a few board members regarding the social media issue. Ah, so the post was already making waves in the industry. As a prominent figure in IT consulting, her reputation was bound to take a hit. Cancel all my appointments. For urgent matters, contact me directly on my cell, Nicole instructed. When Nicole hung up the phone, the room felt silent and heavy. About an hour later, the doorbell rang. Standing at the door was her sister, Lizzie. Nicole, are you okay? Nicole, looking apologetic, invited her sister inside. Lizzie headed straight to the kitchen and began preparing breakfast. I saw Meryl's post, she said, while toasting some bread. Nicole remained silent, sipping the tea Lizzie had handed her. Her hands were still trembling slightly. Lizzie, she said quietly. Was I a terrible mother? Not at all, Lizzie replied immediately. But she's been spoiled for too long, Lizzie said firmly. Nicole felt a small bit of comfort from her sister's words, but at the same time, she felt deep regret. Had she truly raised her daughter the right way? Bringing up Raphael was crossing the line, Lizzie said, her voice tinged with anger. Yes, Raphael. A sharp pain shot through Nicole's chest. Raphael's death was a wound that would never fully heal for her. To have that wound reopened by her own daughter was unbearable. Around midday, Nicole's phone rang again. It was Meryl's fiancé, Marty. Hello? Nicole? Marty's voice sounded nervous. Marty, Nicole said calmly. I know about your insider trading. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. I can explain. It was just with my previous company. I don't want to discuss this right now, Nicole said, cutting him off before ending the call. By the evening, Meryl's post had been deleted, but screenshots had already spread widely across the internet. The post had even started to slightly affect the company's public relations. Are you just worried about your reputation? A message from Meryl popped up on Nicole's phone. At that moment, something inside Nicole snapped. She deleted the message without replying. Later that night, Lizzie showed up again, this time with a sleeping bag in hand. I'm staying here tonight, she said. I don't want to leave you alone. Nicole felt grateful for her sister's support. Throughout the day, Lizzie's presence had been her only solace. But this was just the beginning. This incident marked the start of an irreversible rift in the relationship between the mother and daughter. 3 days after the social media chaos, the situation escalated. Nicole's bank account received an unexpected deposit. The sender was Meryl, and the amount was $22,000. The accompanying message read, "This is my true worth. Enjoy it, you poor loser." Sitting at her office desk, Nicole stared at the screen of her smartphone for a long time. Outside the window, The Manhattan skyline stretched out before her. Nicole immediately sent the $22,000 back. Her reply read simply, "It's not about the money." Grabbing her jacket, she left the office. As Nicole drove, her mind raced. Why had Meryl sent that exact amount? She had an idea, a memory that surfaced. There was that one time a moment when Meryl had been scolded, but in the end, Nicole had given in to her tears and covered the expense. Looking back, that might have been the turning point. Her phone rang. It was Meryl. "You sent the money back." Meryl's voice was tinged with irritation. "It's not about the money," Nicole replied. "Not about the money? You were complaining about the wedding budget, weren't you?" "That's different." Different. Meryl's voice rose. "You care more about your company than you do about me, don't you? You always have. It's always been work, work, work. And for what? You don't even work for a big company. And yet I grew up in a house where we couldn't afford anything decent." Nicole was stunned. She couldn't believe her daughter thought of her that way. The truth was, Nicole had built a successful career. She was the CEO of Collins Innovations, a prominent IT consulting firm. After her husband Raphael passed away, Nicole had managed to balance parenting and work, eventually founding her own company. The business had flourished, but Nicole had kept her role as CEO a secret from Meryl. She wanted her daughter to grow up with a sense of normalcy and appreciate the value of money. In the early days when Meryl was young, Nicole's fledgling business had struggled. It had been easy to keep quiet about it then. Now, she wondered if it was time to reveal the truth. But before she could say more, Meryl interrupted. "Have you heard something about Marty?" Nicole hesitated for a moment. She had been concerned about Marty's past. "Meryl, let's sit down and talk calmly," she said. "It's too late for that," Meryl replied, her tone cold. "You don't actually care about my happiness, do you?" "That's not true." Nicole's voice rose despite herself. "I've always tried to give you everything you could ever want. And for the record, I'm the CEO of a company. I never told you because I wanted you to grow up with the same values as any normal family." "That's a lie. I don't believe you," Meryl snapped, cutting her off. Something inside Nicole broke. "I calculated how much money I've spent on you until you turned 18, she said, her voice low but laced with anger. "Over $850,000. She heard Meryl gasp on the other end of the line. "I'm thinking I'd like you to pay it back." "What? Are you joking?" "I'm not joking. You're an independent adult, aren't you? You should be able to take responsibility for yourself." "Is that a threat?" Meryl's voice was sharp with fury. "It's not a threat. It's a fact," Nicole said coolly. There was a moment of silence. Then Meryl erupted. "You're the worst. I'd be better off without a mother like you." The call ended abruptly. Nicole pulled her car over to the side of the road, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Where had she gone wrong? What had she done to cause this? Everything felt like chaos. That night, she found herself alone, standing outside an old apartment building. The apartment where Meryl had lived until she was 5 was still standing, though it had grown old. The building was worn, but it remained intact. Raphael. Nicole murmured in the empty home. 2 months later, during an emergency board meeting, Nicole received a message from Meryl. She didn't open it immediately. After leaving the meeting room, she returned to her office and opened Meryl's message first. "Mom, I want to apologize. Can we meet?" Just then, her phone rang. It was Lizzie. "Nicole, it's about Meryl," Lizzie said, her voice tense. "Marty never intended to marry her. It was all just a distraction to divert attention from his insider trading accusations." "What do you mean?" Nicole sank deeply into her chair. She had suspected something, but hearing it confirmed left her shaken. "And Meryl. She's crying. She's here at my house." Nicole stood up immediately. She instructed her secretary, Beth, to cancel the rest of her appointments and rushed to her car. When she arrived at Lizzie's house, she found Meryl curled up in the living room. Her makeup was gone, and she wasn't wearing any designer clothes. She looked like a fragile 23-year-old girl. Meryl. At the sound of her mother's voice, Meryl slowly looked up. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Mom, I looked up your company. I couldn't believe it, but it's true, you're really the CEO. I'm so sorry for saying such horrible things and hurting you. I've lost everything. Her voice trembled. Don't worry about that. Tell me everything about Marty, Nicole said as she sat beside her daughter. Meryl began speaking slowly. Last summer, I met him at a party. He was so charming and kind, she said, searching for the right words. Nicole listened silently. But he's a gambler. One day, I saw his phone. Meryl's voice faltered. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I was just a tool to him. Lizzie spoke softly. Meryl, you need to tell your mom everything. Meryl hesitantly pulled out her smartphone. Here. Look at this, she said. The screen displayed photos of Marty with another woman. The pictures, taken at a high-end restaurant last weekend, were clearly captured in secret. She wasn't just an ex, Meryl said, her tone calm. She's a securities analyst. They were working together to cover up evidence of insider trading. Nicole's expression grew stern. The wedding was part of their scheme. They thought showing strong family ties would reduce suspicion. I was just part of the act. Meryl's voice broke, and her shoulders shook as she began to cry again. Even attacking you, it was all Marty's idea. He said, create drama with your mom to gain sympathy. I was so stupid. Nicole gently placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. The social media posts, even Dad's photos. It was all his manipulation. Meryl said, her face contorted in pain as she buried it in her hands. Her tears wouldn't stop. Nicole held her daughter silently. I've been reflecting on my entire life. Meryl continued, her voice muffled against her mother's chest. I share some of the blame, Nicole said quietly. But Mom, I tried to keep my promise to your father, but in the wrong way, she continued. Mom, Meryl said softly, what should I do now? First, Nicole answered, we need to report Marty to the police. You have evidence of his insider trading, don't you? Meryl nodded in agreement. And then, Nicole continued, you need to carve out your own life with your own strength. I'll always be here for you. But after all those terrible things I said, the bond between a mother and daughter isn't so easily broken, Nicole said with a gentle smile. Lizzie came in from the kitchen, carrying warm tea. The three of them sat quietly, holding their cups and gazing out at the evening sky. Starting the next day, their lives would change drastically. There was Marty's betrayal, the fear of media scrutiny, and the challenges at the company. But at that moment, the room was filled with warmth. The New York Times headline read, Rising star in IT industry arrested for insider trading. Marty's arrest sent shockwaves through the financial world. Nicole's office was flooded with interview requests from the early morning. But she delegated everything to the PR department and took the day off. She had more important matters to attend to. Ready. Nicole called to Meryl, who was waiting in front of Lizzie's house. The two got into the car and headed toward St. Mary's Hospital, the place where everything had begun 23 years ago. And this day it would mark a new beginning. Visiting Dad's grave, Meryl said softly. I haven't done it since I graduated high school. Nicole listened in silence. She herself hadn't visited in years. Perhaps she had used work as an excuse to turn away from what truly mattered. When they arrived at the small cemetery behind the hospital, they walked quietly together. At Raphael's grave, fresh flowers had already been placed by Lizzie. Dad, Meryl greeted the gravestone. A gentle breeze blew, rustling her hair. "I won't run away anymore. I'll build my own life, just like Mom taught me." Nicole stood beside her daughter solemnly as though making a prayer. That afternoon, Meryl visited her mother's office. They sat across from each other in the meeting room. "Mom, I've decided to start looking for a job," Meryl said with a determined expression. "I've been leaning on you and haven't put in any effort. But from now on, that's a good decision," Nicole said with a smile. "And I'm going to move out of the apartment. I'll find a place I can afford with my own income, not a luxury one." Nicole felt a surge of pride in her daughter's resolve. At the same time, there was a touch of sadness. This was what she had always wanted for her daughter as a parent. "Mom," Meryl said, looking at her with earnest eyes. Nicole replied gently, "I'll always be on your side." Sunlight streamed through the window, heralding the arrival of spring. A new season was beginning. 1 year later, in spring. In a small cafe in Manhattan, Nicole sipped her coffee while reading the newspaper. The business section detailed Marty's prison sentence. "Sorry to keep you waiting." A cheerful voice broke her focus as Meryl took a seat across from her. It had been 10 months since Meryl started working as an editorial assistant at a publishing house. The glamour she once wore was gone, replaced by a healthy, radiant glow. "Today I have a new project proposal to share," Meryl said excitedly. "It's about a psychology book for children. It's for kids who've lost their parents." Nicole smiled. Her daughter was channeling her own experiences into helping others. "Aunt Lizzie has agreed to supervise the project," Meryl added. Their relationship was slowly, but steadily, mending. Weekend brunches had become a tradition, and they now openly discussed work and future dreams. "Mom," Meryl began, "next week is Dad's Memorial Day, isn't it?" "Yes, it is. This year I'd like to choose the flowers, and..." She pulled out a small envelope. Nicole opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Mom, I wanted to put into words the feelings I haven't been able to express until now. You raised me all by yourself. I never felt like I was lacking anything. But for a long time, I didn't recognize the weight of your love. Happiness given through money and things fades quickly. But the positivity, strength, and love you've taught me will live on inside me forever. I believe Dad is watching over me, and I think he's happy that, little by little, we're building a real bond as mother and daughter. With love, Meryl." Nicole quietly folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. She felt a warmth rising in her chest, her eyes slightly misting. "Mom," Meryl asked with concern. "Thank you," Nicole said with a smile. "You're truly strong." Outside, the spring breeze carried flower petals through the air. The promise made 23 years ago is now bearing fruit in a new form. The two of them sat quietly, sipping their coffee and watching the view outside the window.